Professor Menashri, let's hear something about Iran. Hello, everybody. I would like, first of all, to congratulate the INSS that deals with national security issues. I've heard and read Major General Yadlin, and he treats other players as well, but it's true that in the presentation here they have not been mentioned, and I haven't heard the word China up to now. Now, in the morning, my friend Professor Sasser started wondering how you can speak after 2 hours of Jordan and Palestine. How can you say more about that? What can I say about 30 years of speaking about Iran? And now I have to say something that may be new and give another perspective. So I will try very succinctly to touch a number of points. First of all, Iran is a very complex state. When you talk about it, there is more than one Iran. It is true that there was a professor at the Tel Aviv University who used to say that it's not enough to say that the situation is complex. You should say how complex it is, what are the components of this situation. There are different approaches even in the religious establishment. When in 1979 Khomeini reached Iran, the 7 religious scholars were there, and none of them supported Khomeini. The most senior religious officer was put into jail, and the one that was supposed to be the person to inherit Khomeini was put in jail as well. The jails are full with reformists, with lots of representatives of other groups in Iran. There is quite a large polemics about the nature of the revolution and its results. There is the civil society in Iran, which is the most developed in the Middle East. Just look at how they're using the internet, the film industry and the women organization, their higher education system, etc. The problem is that all these nice things are not in fact what dictates the Iranian policy. The Iranian policy is dictated by another group that has in fact taken upon itself to perpetuate the Islamist regime and not to give any freedom of expression to other groups, or of course the ability to get to the administration. And we saw what they did 4 years ago to their youth. And if you look at Syria today, you have to remember that to a certain extent the lessons drawn by the Iranian regime from the suppression of the riots and the statement that we are not going to let the opposition do what we had done to the Shah, not to give any discounts to the opposition, so to speak. Some of these lessons are being taught in Syria, and the Iranians are teaching them to the Syrians. So there is a violent oppression of the other forces, but underground there are different trends and groups that are waiting for the right opportunity. I can't tell you when it's going to break out to the surface, but let me just tell you that if you're talking about the Arab Spring in Iran, people are asking what is the origin of the Arab Spring, 1979 in Iran or 2009 in Iran, because the only state with a tradition of civil disobedience is the Iranian nation. Now they're looking at the Arab Spring and they're saying they have learned that from us, and look at where we are and where they are. Maybe both of us are in the same place. A word about the Islamic revolution, Islamic ideology, etc. I don't understand what's Islamic about it. What was the message conveyed by the revolution? It was not an Islamist revolution. It's like the youngsters in the Tahrir Square 2 years ago wanted an Islamist revolution. There was a kidnapping of the people who actually piggybacked the professors at the university and brought about the toppling of the Shah, and it was based from their weakness and the power of the religious regime. And where does the weakness of this regime lie? It assumed that the revolution was there in order to get 2.5 things for the Iranian people: bread and liberty, apart from the dignity that they were looking for. Is there today more liberty to the Iranian youth than there was during the Shah? I lived in Iran 2 years before the Shah. There was no democracy. You don't have to tell me that the Shah was not democratic. Is there today more freedom? During the Shah, it was a crime to speak against the Shah, and today it's also a sin. I don't know what's worse. And bread for the population, there's no more bread today than there used to be years ago. The lesson I learned from the revolution is that Iran is subject to pressures. The idea that Iran does not succumb to pressures, well, I'm going to tell you the opposite, because you won't find even one case in which there was clashing between the interests of the Iranian state, where the regime did not give up the dogma for interest. The question is which pressure, to what extent, and who are the people exerting this pressure, or the organizations. So I think that you should exert more pressure on this camel. And what's the straw that's going to break the camel's back? I don't know, but the idea is to put more and more straw, and I promise you that at the end of the day, one straw is going to do the job. The question is, and Ambassador Levit has talked about the cup of poison that Khomeini has to drink in January 1978. And I agree, Khomeini should brought to a situation of drinking this poison to stop the nuclearization program at his will. But the question whether Khamenei is like Khomeini that could take such a strategic decision. He doesn't have the personal charisma. He doesn't have the religious status and the political clout that could have made him go to the television to look at people's eyes and say, it's sweeter for me to drink the poison than to sign an agreement with Saddam Hussein, but I have no choice. I still think that pressures should be exerted on him to do it. Who can do it? And now I would like to refer to the conclusions of this team that analyzed it, and I think that it's not only Israel, the United States, and Iran. These are not the only players. The pressure can be exerted not only from the military organizations. Put it on the side. The Iranians know that there's a military option. They know that there is this option. Maybe they evaluate the Israeli readiness to use it more than the Israelis do. There is a moral pressure. Where is the morality of the free democracies of the international community when there are oppression steps and people are executed in Iran 3 a day? It's much more than can be acceptable. There is a diplomatic, political, international pressure exerted on Iran. Canada has based its relations with Iran, has suspended its relations with Iran. With 10 more countries doing that, Iran would have behaved differently. Once the European Union called back in 1997, and a month later Khatami was elected to be president of Iran, and I think there is a connection between those two events. The Iranians, when you negotiate with them, you have to speak Persian to them. There is no ability to say yes or no in Persian. You are negotiating with them for 6 months, and their answer is going to be yes, but, no, but, and you never know where you are. That is why the questions to the Iranians should be clear, that they can do something and say something, but unequivocally, and I think that that is not exactly what has been done up to now. There is this important institution near Tel Aviv where one of the slogans is, "Thou shalt use cunning in order to wage war." Maybe they took it to Tehran, but I think that we stopped being sophisticated and cunning and thinking out of the box. And I think that here in the Iranian issue, you have to make all the efforts and think how to do it. The Iranian problem is facing the whole free world. This revolution has said that there are two ideological forces in the world, the Soviet communism and the American capitalism. One was toppled, the other one is there to be toppled. Islam is the ideology of the future. With such an ideology, what is Israel got for Iran? We are half Tehran, not more than that. And one last word about what Israel can do. And I would like to join what has been said in the previous session. Today, the Saudis are afraid of Iran, not less than Israel. The whole Middle East has a problem with the Iranian nuclearization. And I think that there should be a certain political process with Palestinians. It can make things clear that we are trying to create a certain consensus, a certain regional cooperation with countries or states that are afraid of that are afraid of Iran even more than they are afraid of Israel. People say that you need two for a tango. Unfortunately, here I can't see even one person for this specific tango. And one last word, I think that in Iran we see today two parallel processes, the nuclearization and the political change. I think that the international community should do whatever is possible in order to slow down the nuclearization process, and if possible to do something in order to accelerate the internal process in Iran, because the Iranian youth, it's not true that is not going to be happy with the pressure that is not being exerted on the population. For example, pressure about human rights issues. It's going to serve the Iranian youth and the Iranian people, not less than the neighbors of Iran.